Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I am your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 127. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and down in the comments section, let me know, are you playing anybody $10,000 or higher in Draftkings this week? Because it doesn't look like a lot of people are. So curious to see on where you stand on that. So leave that down in the comments section. This week, we will quickly recap the Zurich and LIV Adelaide. Then we're going to dive into the CJ Cup Byron Nelson and quickly give some thoughts on LIV Singapore. But Zurich was meh. I mean, you know, you don't really expect much from a team event. I did watch a little bit more on the weekend than I thought I was going to. Really wasn't too compelling. Had a couple guys that looked like they might be able to get up there as far as bets go, but they kind of fell back. But, you know, Rory and Shane ended up getting it done. And I mean, if they didn't, that probably would have been pretty pathetic on their part. But, you know, I don't think it's really that big of a deal for them getting a win. But as odd as it sounds, I do think it helps their confidence a little bit, you know, just with Shane not being able to get it done numerous times on Sundays and Rory just without a win in the United States this year. I think maybe they can take it as a confidence builder, but in the grand scheme of things, obviously it doesn't mean much, but I do think that they could take it as a positive going forward. And honestly, I do like Rory for the rest of the year here. I could see him possibly winning a major this year. You know, now that the Masters is out of the way, he's got that headache and that worry out of his mind. So I definitely think he could play well here for the rest of the year and maybe go on a run here. So I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on that. As far as LIV goes, as I said, you know, I was going to watch quite a bit of that this week. I did actually get to tune in. Pretty much fell asleep every single night that I was watching it, so I didn't get to watch as much as I really wanted to. But didn't really work out too well from a bet standpoint. But I have to say, I mean, the broadcast is so much better just from the standpoint of just it's nonstop golf shots. And I get that they don't have to show commercials because they don't need the marketing money. But I mean, PGA, you got to do better. It's a joke at this point how terrible it is. I mean, it's great watching LIV and just being able to see guys shoot golf shots. It's incredible. Now, I will say from the shotgun start standpoint, not really a big fan at all because you can't really gauge where guys are, especially in the final round. It's really weird. So I don't like that aspect of it. The team thing still is kind of wonky. I get that they had a team playoff and yeah, that's cool. But I feel like they should do it maybe every 3 events, maybe have a team event and just do something cool like that. Maybe along the lines of what we saw at the Zurich, maybe do some alternate shot best ball stuff, just some different things, or like they do at the team championship at the end of the season, maybe just integrate that a little bit more and actually make it a team, because while these guys are individually playing, they don't give a shit about their team. And then you're just at the end saying, hey, go team. It doesn't make sense. So from that standpoint, not a huge fan of that still. But as I said, it's just they are light years ahead when it comes to the broadcast and just showing golf shots in general. So we will dive into LIV Singapore here a little bit, but not diving in as much as I did last week, but do have some thoughts on that. But this week on the PGA Tour, we do have the CJ Cup Byron Nelson. So definitely think that could be a interesting one there. I just, from a field standpoint, it's ugly. I mean, it's really ugly. Basically, we have Jordan Spieth and a bunch of scrubs. So we're going to go through the field. But first, if we dive into the course, TPC Craig Ranch has hosted the Byron Nelson for the last 3 years. This will be the 4th iteration of the tournament. It is a 7,440 yard par 71 with bent grass greens. Fairways are Zoysia grass, so don't really see that too often. So that might be something that we want to keep in mind here. But this is a very, very easy course. Basically, what we see is winning scores in the 20s -23 to -25, somewhere around there. The cut has been -3 to -5. So it is an absolute birdie fest. Definitely very, very easy. So you definitely want guys that can go low here. There are 11 par fours. It is a par 71. 6 of them are 450 to 500 yards. So definitely want to keep that in mind. You know, guys that can play well on those par fours from 450 to 500 will definitely come into play. There is one that is under 350 yards and actually could be drivable on some days for some of the golfers. And then there's actually one over 500 yards. That's the one that they changed from a par 5 to a par 4. I believe it was last year. So they made it from a par 72 to a par 71. There are 4 par 3s, 3 of which are over 200 yards. They play rather difficult, and obviously they are long. The par 5s, 3 of them, they're the easiest holes on the course. You definitely got to go low on those holes. Got to take advantage of them if you have any chance of contending this week. And we actually see quite a bit of eagles here as well. Fairways are pretty wide, kind of easy to hit. So, I mean, looking to bomb it really isn't going to be too penal here if you do happen to miss the fairway. So guys do go long here. Average drive of 295 yards, which is well above tour average. As I said, fairways are hit at about a 60% clip, which is somewhere around tour average. So not too bad. But as I said, missing fairways isn't the end of the world. And 36% of all approach shots come from 200 plus yards. So you're going to want guys that are good with those long irons. 36% from 200 plus yards is rather significant. And despite the fact that they are hitting shots from that far away, greens in regulation is actually above tour average. About 70% of greens are hit. Now, these greens are a little bit above average in size, so that could be part of it. But guys are definitely going to be hitting greens. Now, you don't want guys just hitting greens, though. You want them getting it close and getting birdie opportunities. So I am looking at opportunities gained. Guys that can get it within 15 feet and give themselves a birdie chance there is definitely important. So you want to look at that. You want to look at the birdies or better percentage as well, because you don't just want guys hitting it close. You want them actually scoring on this course. Now, scrambling is easier than most courses on tour. So if you are missing these greens, it's not the end of the world. We've seen guys be able to get it close or even make chips from off of here. There are 83 bunkers on the course, so sand play could come in quite a bit. The first 2 years, we actually saw the leaders actually double the field in scrambling from the sand. So it's kind of interesting that guys can still get to a -25 number, even though they're hitting bunkers, but just something to keep in mind there. So really what you're looking for here is tee to green. Now, it's one of the rare courses where off the tee and strokes gained approach are fairly similar among the winners and the guys in the top 10. So just tee to green as a whole, definitely want to look at. As I said, birdies are better gain and opportunities gain. Want those par 4s from 450 to 500 yards, and then definitely that proximity from 200 plus yards. There are 156 golfers in the field, with the top 65 in ties making the weekend. Now, it was formerly played at Trinity Forest, the Byron Nelson, but they moved here in 2021. KH Lee won the first 2 years, so basically this was his jam. He absolutely loved it here the first 2 years. Last year, Jason Day won by 1 shot over Siwoo Kim. Final score 23 under. So Day was in much better form last year, and I mean, we could see with his putting, maybe he comes back here and plays well, but just hasn't been hitting his approach shots very well. So he's probably going to have to improve that a little bit. But those are your 3 winners, or 2 from KH Lee and 1 from Jason Day. As I said, the winning score was in the 20s. Cut's going to be well under par. So if we dig into the field, as I said, it's pretty weak. And, you know, we have defending champ Jason Day up here as one of only 3 golfers over $10,000 on DraftKings. Jordan Spieth, 10,900. Jason Day, 10,400. And Will Zalatoris at an even 10,000. These guys don't look like they're going to be owned, as I said at the top. So if you're looking for some leverage, I think a lot of people are going to start in that lower range there. So I don't know what I want to do here. I mean, it's definitely enticing with these guys being this low. I do think I'm going to play Jordan Spieth. I think he'll probably be somewhere around 10%. Just tends to play well in Texas, has played well here. So do like that, but I don't know. I just it's really hard to dig in because I don't think I want to play Jason Day. As I said, just not in the best form. So really don't want to go there. Zalatoris, everybody's saying in a birdie fest, you really can't get there with him. You want him on more difficult courses. And while I do agree with that, if you actually look at him on easy courses, he's 12th in strokes gained total on easy courses where scoring is easy. So, I mean, he can make some birdies. It's not completely out of the realm of possibilities. And I don't think anybody's going to play him either. So I'd probably rather play him over Day, but I think I'd rather play Spieth over Zalatoris. But you're probably going to get Zalatoris at a really low ownership. So I do keep it in the back of my mind. Maybe by tomorrow, definitely check the newsletter. I will definitely make a decision by then, but I'm probably only looking to play one of these guys up here. And in the field, actually, Zalatoris is ninth in opportunities gained. So really it would come down to him being able to make the putts, which I understand that could be the concern, but I do think that there is some merit to play in some of these guys above 10,000 this week with how popular everybody below them is going to be. Now, we'll start with the top of the $9,000 range, Siwoo Kim. I love him here, 9,800. Obviously, he was runner up last year. Do think that he could play well here. I mean, I've already made it outright on him at 22 to 1. I've seen that drop to 18 and even 16 in some places. So apparently I'm not alone in that, but I do like Siwoo Kim. I have made the outright on him. I do plan on playing him in DraftKings, but do want to see what the ownership comes in at. But he's been very good striking the ball recently, and I just think this is a course where he could definitely play well. Sung Jae Im, 9,700. Not really crazy about it. I'm sure a lot of people really aren't. He did just win in Korea, and he's taking a flight back. We know last time that he did that didn't work out too well. Granted, that's a one-time sample size. We don't know how he was really feeling then, but it does worry you a little bit. But the fact that he just won a tournament, maybe that gives him a little bit of confidence and he can maybe play better than he has been. But with his recent form up at 9,700, there's just some other guys I'd rather play here. One of which is Adam Scott, 9,600. I have made a top 20 wager on him at plus 130. I just think that this is a great course for him. I do think that he can go low. He's 8th ranked in my model. He's 6th in opportunities gained. He does a lot of what you like here. So been playing good golf this year. He's basically a top 20 machine. Now at this price in this field, you're probably going to want a little bit higher of a ceiling there, but I am definitely playing Adam Scott. Next, I think Alex Noren is going to be my fade this week. It looks like he's going to be somewhere up around 18, maybe even 20%. And I get he's played well in Texas. He has an okay finish at TPC Craig Ranch, but I don't know. I just, if he's going to be that highly owned up here at 9,500, it's one of those guys where I'm willing to just look over him. He's 95th in the field and birdies are better. So definitely don't like that over the last 24 rounds. I mean, it's a pretty bad field and he's not really great with the birdies. He's 117th from 200 plus yards. So that's another huge knock at this course. So I just think it's enough with the price, the ownership, and those two aspects where I'm going to be fading Noren. Same with Minwoo Lee. I want nothing to do with him. Haven't really decided what I wanted to do with Benny On yet. Do think that this course fits him very well, but I could see him being pretty popular as well. 5th in opportunities gain, 8th in birdies are better, 13th off the tee, 4th in driving distance, 23rd in sand saves, 25th from 200 plus yards. So he's got a lot of what you like here. The form hasn't been great lately, but in a weaker field, I do think that he could possibly stand out. So as of right now, he's in the player pool, but want to see what the ownership gets to. Jaeger, I like as well, 9,200. Now, since his win, he really hasn't shown too much of a ceiling. But again, in a weak field, I think it's fine going back to him. Tom Hoagie, 9,100. I expect to be the highest owned up here, above $9,000. He rates out so well from an approach standpoint, from a long iron standpoint. He's 1st in opportunities gained, 3rd in birdies are better. So, I mean, it's just really it comes down to the putter. And we saw it at the Heritage, it really was the last hole where he imploded, but didn't look too good last week in the team tournament. Now you take that with a grain of salt, but if his ownership is really going to be up there, he's going to have to make putts to pay off. And as of right now, I'm kind of leaning towards staying away from him. Now, as I said, I'm leaning away from Noren as well, so maybe I can fit him in. But I just like some of these other guys in this range a little bit better, and one of which is Tom Kim. I think he's going to be significantly lower owned than Hoagie. He looks like he's over the injury from earlier in the year, been playing a little bit better, striking the irons a little better, and I do think that this is a course that fits him as well. And if you're going to give me him at 9,000, I do think that he is a better caliber golfer when he's at full strength over a lot of these guys. So I'm playing Tom Kim. And then I absolutely love Keith Mitchell. I know I am not going to be alone on that, but he's played well recently, gaining strokes both off the tee and on approach in 7 straight events. In his last 3 tournaments, he's finished 14th at the Valero, missed the cut at Houston, but then he also was 17th at Valspar, so some good finishes coming in. Rates out very well statistically over the last 24 rounds. 2nd in opportunities gained, 3rd in approach, 3rd off the tee, 5th in birdies or better, and he's 10th from 200 plus yards. So you gotta like what you see there statistically from him. I have made an outright on Keith Mitchell at 40-1 with 6 places. So I'm going to be betting him. I'm going to be playing him. I like Keith Mitchell quite a bit. Similar to some of these other guys, it's going to come down to what he can do with the putter, but I think he can make enough putts here to make it interesting. Now, I think a lot of these guys in the 8s are going to be skipped over, especially in this higher range, and people are going to just try and jam as many people from that $9,000 range as they can. So look for that, semi-balanced build this week, and if you get away from it, I think it immediately differentiates your lineups. So like I said, if you do want to go to one of those 10K guys and then maybe 9K and then drop down, I think that'll make you very, very different this week. And even more so as we head down into the 6K range, we'll get there. I think there are some playable plays, and in a weak field, the difference in caliber of golfer that you're finding down there compared to some of these guys in the 7s, I don't think is really that drastic. So you can definitely make a case to play those 6K guys, and you're going to be getting different from a lineup construction standpoint. So just that quick tangent real quick from a strategy standpoint. But I'm going to be skipping over a lot of these guys in the 8s. I do like Mav McNeely quite a bit. Usually not a big fan of him, but he's been okay so far in 2024. He's made 8 straight cuts. Best finishes were 6th in Phoenix, 9th at the Players, and 13th in Mexico. He's gained strokes off the tee in 6 straight events, so definitely like that. I do think that he could play well here. He is 2nd in the field in total strokes gained over the last 24 rounds, so gotta like that. 6th in strokes gained off the tee, 10th in opportunities gained, and 1st in par 4s from 450 to 500 over the last 24 rounds. So he looks pretty good statistically as well. I do like Mav McNeely here at a pretty affordable price at only 8,200. Then if we go down a little bit further, right below him, 8,100, I do think Mark Hubbard actually could play well pretty here. I do think that he's going to hit enough greens to where he's given himself some good birdie opportunities. Speaking of birdies, he is 13th in the field and birdies are better. So he can definitely do some scoring. Not a fan of Aaron Rye here. I like him a little bit more on courses where you're looking to avoid bogeys rather than go on birdie streaks. So don't really love that. Jake Knapp just hasn't looked great since the win in Mexico, but he did win in Mexico. And I guess you could kind of say maybe this isn't a comp course, but it is a longish course with it's going to be a birdie fest. So if he won in Mexico, I do think that he could potentially play well here. The worry has been he gets a little wild off the tee, but here you don't really have to worry about that too much unless you get absolutely insanely wild off the tee. I didn't say it in the course preview, but there is a creek that runs through here that comes into play on 13 holes. Sometimes it really comes into play, but for the most part, it's just kind of there, and balls really don't find their way into there too much. But other than that, there's really not a ton of trouble here. So I do think Knapp could be a pretty good play here. Next is Seamus Power, 7,900. Another guy, I want to see what his ownership is coming in at. Right now, he's sub 10%, so I'm fine going there, but he's played well at TPC Craig Ranch over the last 3 years, sixth in total strokes gained here over the last 3 years. So he seems to like this place. And, you could say it's a small sample size, but he's played here 3 times. Last year, he came 19th, gained 7.5 strokes tee to green, 17th in 2022, and 9th in 2021. So some good finishes here. I'm possibly looking to make a top 20 bet on him, maybe a top 30. But I think I'm going to play him in DraftKings as well. He's been kind of a mixed bag this year, but finished 12th most recently at the Heritage, and he's gained strokes on approach in 5 straight tournaments. So like where the irons are at. I like that he's played well here before, and I'm fine going to him here and at a low ownership. Some of these other guys, Doug Gim, I kind of like. We're going to go a little bit quicker here. Ben Griffin, I think he can make enough putts to potentially be in contention here. Haven't really decided whether or not I want to play him. As of right now, he has a star next to his name, but I absolutely love Ryan Fox here, 7,600. He's top 25 and birdies are better gained here. He's got some distance off the tee. So I think I'm fine with Ben Griffin. And then Kevin Yu's probably going to be pretty popular, but for good reason. He's been very good. First in strokes gained off the tee over the last 24 rounds, 18th in opportunities gained. He's third from that over 200 proximity. So got a little bit of power to him. He's 20th in strokes gained approach. So I like Kevin Yu quite a bit, and 7,500 I think is a good price for him, and probably will be one of the more popular plays in the 7,000 range. Taylor Pendrith kind of sticks out here. Just I do think that he can make some birdies. He's just been so inconsistent here recently, but I think it's potentially worth a shot at 7,400. Same price, 7,400 for Andrew Novak. I do like that. Very good at the over 200 proximity. He's great on approach. So if he's striking his irons and getting it close, I think he can make some birdies. Always like Nate Lashley in a birdie fest. 7,300 I think is fine for him. Ryan Palmer in Texas is a must, so 7,100 for him. I'll be going there. Probably not going to play a ton of him, but in some of my larger field GPPs, I do like Ryan Palmer quite a bit. And I said I think there's some guys in the 6K range that you could play, and I absolutely am fine with a good amount of them, actually. Johnny Vegas, 6,900, starting to play a little bit better since shaking off the rust. Obviously we know he can mash it off the tee. He's 20th in opportunities gained. He's 8th in strokes gained approach over the last 24 rounds. So he's been striking the ball pretty well here recently. So I do like him. Ryan Moore, 6,800 is another guy that is great with the irons. He can make some birdies here. Hopefully, maybe you like him on a little bit more of a difficult course, but I do think it's a pretty good price for him considering who's around him. Joel Damon is another ball striker who's been striking the ball well here. Kind of concerning. You got to have him make some birdies, but at 6,700, I think I'm fine going there. Rico Hui, I love that. Off the tee, he can mash it as well. So I'm cool going there at 6,700. Austin Smotherman is a guy that shows up every once in a while in some of these birdie fests. So if you wanted to throw a little sprinkle of him in there, I'd be all right with it. And then down at 6,500, I think he's a little bit mispriced. Carson Young, I think, is a better golfer than a lot of people in this range. So 6,500, I think, is definitely a good price for him, and I will be going to him. So there's a couple options there that I like in the 6K range. And as I said, if you want to build from the top, one of those 10K guys, and maybe get down here in this 6K range, I definitely think that it will make you different. And I'm going to try and do that in some larger field GPPs this week. In some of my single entry stuff, I'll probably do that balance build with as many guys as I could fit in the 9K range. But overall, I kind of, in a birdie fest, we could see a lot of variance, especially in a weak field. There's no one that completely stands out head and shoulders over these guys. So I think it's good to diversify a little bit. I will be playing a little bit more larger field stuff here this week. And just to recap my bets so far, I have Siwoo Kim at 22, Keith Mitchell at 40 with 6 places, and then just Adam Scott with a top 20 at plus 130. Obviously, I will be adding more. Want to take a look at the weather as well. It looks like we could have some rain, we could have some wind. Really don't like talking too much about it on a Tuesday because a lot can change. So I would say definitely take a look at the newsletter. I will have all my bets in there. Also, theHelmSports.com. I will have at the My Bets tab all my bets by tomorrow night. Also, just quickly, if you are listening to this, I'm thinking about switching things up going forward. Generally, I put out my course preview on Sunday, and then I have the hardcore parkour on Tuesday. But what I've been noticing is a lot of times, kind of putting ownership in there, and then obviously ownership's changing by Wednesday. Kind of changed my mind on some of the guys I'm playing in my core four. So always update that in the newsletter. But rather than just putting that out and it all changing the next day, I'm thinking I'm going to just add a lot of that to the newsletter from now on. So I'll probably do my course preview and just do a preview as a whole as some guys that I'm seeing stand out. Maybe putting that out on Monday, just any bets that I've made for Monday and guys that I'm possibly looking at, course preview, all that good stuff. So just kind of putting out a preview of the tournament as a whole on Monday. And then I'll have all the information for DraftKings and my hardcore parkour. So my core four, pivots, fades, all that good stuff, DraftKings ownership, that'll all be in the newsletter going forward. I just think it's a little bit better and it gives me a little bit more time to basically break everything down in a better light as far as the ownership and who I actually want to play. But quickly, we can dive into LIV Singapore. Really not going crazy with this one, but I do want to make a couple bets. I'm going to watch a good amount of it again. It is a course that has been played on the DP World Tour, so if you want to dig in, there is a good amount of information on it. It is a par 71, 7,381 yard course. Now, Sergio Garcia has actually won here on the DP World Tour. He has other very high finishes last year at LIV Singapore. He lost to Gooch in a playoff here. So I bet Sergio at 30-1. I mean, it's a course where he just seems to always show up and likes it. So 30-1 seemed like a great number there. I think I might make a top 10 on him as well. I've seen it plus 180, plus 160. So whatever I can get there, I think I'm going to do that. I bet Answer last week. He played okay, but I do like the way he's been playing recently. And at 25-1 in this field, I think that's a good price for him. So I bet Answer as well. Early in the week, I really wish that I saw Koepka at 20-1. Cam Smith was at 16-1. Now they both dropped significantly from that. So I wish I would have taken those numbers, but didn't really know what I wanted to do and didn't want to decide between the two of them. So kind of dragged my feet. So didn't really get there on them, but I do like them this week as well. So if you wanted to maybe place a top 10 or maybe even a top 5 on one of those guys, I could see it. Or if you just wanted to bet them at their current number of 14 or 12, and that be your only bet this week, I'd be fine with that as well. But really, that's all I'm looking at so far for LIV Singapore. As I said, everything will be theHelmSports.com in the My Bets tab or in the newsletter tomorrow night. So definitely check that out. But that's going to do it for this week. Basically, I think it could be a pretty good week. I do like that we're getting a birdie fest, a little bit of a change of pace here after, a little bit of a lull after the Masters. It's nice to get a full field event and maybe get some scoring in here before we head into another elevated event next week. But that's going to do it for this week. As always, thank you for listening. Greatly appreciated. I am your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
just have fun out there.